Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today we're discussing the Glashutte Original Senator Observer, inspired by vintage deck clocks and marine chronometers. You can see and you can purchase this contemporary automatic winding power reserve timepiece on our website. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy these videos, and please click on the card in the upper right hand corner of the screen at any time during this video to see our full sales listing for this watch, with additional accessories included in the sale, high resolution images for your desktop, and naturally complete pricing details for this Glashutte Original Senator Observer. Now, the model that you see here debuted in 2015, a spectacular piece that traded on earlier styling tropes from the Geo catalog, but for the first time fully luminescent with black dial and steel case. Geo just aced it with this model. Consider it the definitive version. Now, 44 millimeters across the round of the case, not including the crown. It easily fits my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. You can see there's plenty of clearance on the side of my wrist, and if I might try to give you a profile shot, it's hard to do this because I'm standing behind the camera, but you can see it sits nicely on my wrist, flush and well constrained within the bounds of my forearm side to side. There's no overlap. In terms of thickness, it's an easy watch to wear underneath any kind of compact clothing, as it's just fractionally short of 12 millimeters thick at 11.8, but you'll note that the case flank is double stepped and generously sloped thanks to that polished bezel, so it will slide easily underneath a dress cuff, not just the suit jacket but the formal sleeve beneath. Lug-to-lug, possibly the most important measurement for a 44 millimeter watch. 51 millimeters horizontally across the wrist is extremely accommodating, and you'll also note that the watch features generously downsloped and short cropped lugs, so the watch wears as much like a cushion case as possible. The lugs really do, and you can see well from this angle, disappear almost as soon as they exit the case flank, and the strap has no constraint in its motion. You can pull it straight down around the tight curve of a small wrist. Now, the strap is also very substantial. It's calfskin but thick cut, as you can see, with a sheer edge. It is dark brown with a monotone stitch, and I would say semi-monotone because the stitch is somewhat lighter than the leather itself. Natural grain on the bottom. You can see it features a full steel folding buckle, which I prefer on premium watches. It does provide that extra measure of confidence and insurance against droppage while donning or removing. And you note that this one is quite substantial, being both satin finished and polished internally. Nicely made and handsome. It does a good job of counterweighting the watch on the wrist, as a large watch head often pairs best with a substantial bracelet or a weighty clasp to keep it from toppling on the wrists of those who like to wear their watches loose. Now, you also note that the case is handsomely finished, beautifully rounded. It has smart curvatures to its lugs as well as its case band, and if you look at it in profile, you can see it's rather bowl-shaped. The side of the case isn't exactly sheer. It has a very subtle curve to it, and then there's the generous step to the bezel and the curve of the case back. You'll also note that there's dramatic tumble home to the edges of the lugs. They actually fall away to the side just as they curve down horizontally. You'll also note the differential finish. Satin on the flanks of the case, polish on the bezel, polish on the lug tops in contrast with the satin of the flanks. Thoughtfully and handsomely finished. Nevertheless, the dial is the star. Railroad outboard, you can see railroad minutes, small seconds with its own tiny railroad track inboard and sector style constant seconds dial. The hands are kite style, which means they're broad, strongly angled, and beautifully arced. In this case, there's plenty of span to the minute hand. You don't feel that the hands are too short. Sometimes that's the Achilles heel of a watch that gets everything else right. The hands are of a perfect length. The hour hand coming just short of the hour track, the minute hand kissing the railroad. Now, all of the numerals are fully luminescent, so along with the hands at center, this watch, dial and hands, glows remarkably at night. Matte finish to the dial to resist glare. It allows the light printing and the luminescent elements to pop even when the sun is shining. Now, you'll also note that there is a step down to the aperture for the panorama datum, the double-digit date, as well as a slight countersink to the constant seconds and the power reserve scale to add another focal plane. And in the case of the step down to the double date, you have that aperture step to ease the transition from the plane of the dial down to the monotone date discs. And I have to say that it looks very seamless. You really can't see the individual discs. It's a foot away from my face, and I can't see the individual discs from where I stand, so it's a very flush fit panorama datum. Now, the other thing that I want to call attention to is that it features a charmingly balanced combination of oversized radial power reserve, directly opposed to the constant seconds. So it's a well laid out dial in terms of aesthetic balance. Now turn it over and you can see the automatic caliber 100-14 twin mainspring barrels, 55-hour power reserve, a little bit longer than the standard 38 to 42 hours for an automatic watch that is germane to the industry. You'll note the twin mainspring barrels. Now some dual barrel watches have outlandish power reserves amounting to days and days. Here, the twin barrels are used to ensure even release of torque throughout the 55-hour autonomy of the watch's full wind. And really, this watch is about precision, so having the twin mainspring barrels evens out the torque supply, making it a very precise watch. So the power reserve is nice, but those are there for accuracy. You also note that it's a handsomely finished automatic. First, let me clarify, not only does it have the power reserve, but it does have stop seconds. A precise watch is really nothing without the ability to stop the seconds hand and synchronize to a known accurate reference timer. And the watch also features 50-meter water resistance, which makes it more than a typical dress watch 2 to 3, but it's not an aquatic watch. You're not going to want to take the plunge with this one. I'll also add, as you can see, beating away at 28,800 vibrations per hour, there are some characteristic elements of German watch movement construction. As you can see, though it's an automatic, the bridges are in a 3/4 style, which is reminiscent of the pocket watches once made famous by the watchmakers of Glashutte during the 19th and early 20th centuries, and also one of the most charming elements of geo movement finish, often featured on the automatics, is this dramatic double spiral reduction wheel, which is entirely hand finished. Nicely made, it's also pleasant to look at. A handsome watch on both sides, very accurate, with a modern caliber from Geo. They do still have some heritage calibers from the 90s. This is not one of them. The only mechanical peccadillo that I would say makes the watch a little bit quirky is the fact that this pusher adjuster on the case flank is used to adjust the panorama datum. Other than that, I mean, this is a concours quality example of good watch design, arguably the best from Glashutte Original. You can see and you can purchase this Senator Observer on our website. And remember, stay tuned for that loom shot. I promised you a loom shot, and here it is. Glashutte Original Senator Observer, easily observed in the dark. And it's important to note this is one of only 2 luminescent versions of this watch. This is the variant on strap. There's also a variant on bracelet. This one's a little bit better balanced aesthetically in the light, but in the night, they're both absolute torches for dress style watches. See it and purchase it on the Watchbox.